Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of Method of Weed Control Part 3. So in this session we are going to study about integrated weed management. So this is also one type of weed control method, right? So an integrated weed management may be defined as the combination of two or more weed control method at low inputs level to reduce the weed competition in a given cropping system below the economical threshold level. So this is the integrated weed management. So the management system or the combination of two or more weed control method that we can follow at the same time, right? So this is called as integrated weed management. It has proved to be a valuable concept in a few cases. Through much is still to be done to extend it to the small farmer level. Yes, so it is proved to be a valuable concept. This integrated weed management, it is a very valuable concept, right? And it has been done by small farmers also, and they have seen that they got a lot of benefit by following the integrated weed management practice. Integrated weed management practice IWM approach aims to minimizing the residue problems in plant, soil, air and water. So if this management plan has been followed, then they have seen that the residues problem means the problems of the weeds, that is plant, soil, air, not only the weeds, the problems of the residue that could be in the form of soil, air or water, that we get reduced. The IWM involves the utilization of combination of the mechanical, chemical and cultural practices of weed management in a planned sequence, so designed as not to affect the ecosystem. So in this IWM we are using the combination, we are using the mechanical method, we are using the chemical method of weed control, and also different cultural practices to control the weed. So we are using all the methods, right? But in a sequence, in a planned way. Okay, so why we are following this integrated weed management system? So that there is no effect on our ecosystem, to protect our ecosystem, right? If we are only using the chemical method, then in some or the other way it is going to affect our environment, our ecosystem, right? But if we are using this IWM, that is the combination of different mechanical, chemical and cultural practices, then we are not only having a control over the weeds, but also we will not affect our ecosystem. The nature and intensity of the species to be controlled, the sequence of the crops that are raised in the rotation, the standard of the crop husbandry, and ready and timely availability of any method, and the economics of the different weed management techniques are some of the potent considerations that determine the success for the exploitation of the IWM approach, right? So in the nature, the intensity of the species, depending upon what type of species as a weed it is present, right? And that we have to control. So the sequence of crop that are raised in the rotation, that has to be very, very important, right? The standard of crop husbandry that has to be followed, and ready and timely availability of any method, whether it is a chemical method, whether it is a cultural method or mechanical method, we can apply. And the economics of the different weed management techniques are some of the potent consideration that determine the success of IWM. Why IWM? Why we are using this integrated weed management program? One method of weed control may be effective and economical in a situation, and it may not be so in other situation, right? So in one situation, if a type of mechanical weed management is effective, but in the other situation it cannot be, right? So we are using what? We are using the cultural method of weed control. Cultural method, we are using the mechanical method, And we are also using the chemical method. So all the methods, suppose this cultural method is applicable, it's a good to control the weed in one of the situation. But in the other situation, these two, that is the cultural method and mechanical, is not so effective. But yes, chemical is quite effective, right? So it depends upon the situation and situation with which of the method we are having a great control over the weeds. Right? So no single herbicide is effective in controlling the wide range of weed flora. So we are having so many types of weeds, and only if we are having just one herbicide, then it is not going to be very effective for all the weed flora, right? Continuous use of some herbicide creates a resistance in escaped weed flora or cause shift in the flora. So sometimes if you are using every time a single type of herbicides to control a weed, so that weed can develop what? Resistance against that herbicide. And over a time you can see that weed flora is having no effect after the spraying this herbicides. So the continuous use of only one practice may result in some undesirable effects. Example, rice wheat cropping system, that is Phalaris minor. Right? So only one method of the weed control may lead to increase in the population of a particular weed. And indiscriminate herbicide use and its effect on the environment and human health. So every time you are having a lot of herbicides, right? So it is having a bad effect on the environment as well as the human health. So what is the concept behind the IWM? Uses of variety of technologies in a single weed management with the object to produce optimum crop yield at a minimum cost, taking into consideration ecological and socio-economic constraints under the given agro system. So we are using a wide variety of technology. We are using all the three different methods, as a cultural method, as a chemical method, as a mechanical method of the weed control, right? And in a single weed management. So this is a quite cost effective, and at a minimum cost we can have produce the optimum yield of the crop by this technique. So this was the concept. A system in which two or more methods are used to control a weed. So these methods include cultural practices, natural enemies, and selective herbicides. FAO definition. What is the FAO definition of this integrated weed management? It is a method whereby all economically, ecologically, and toxicologically justifiable methods are employed to keep the harmful organism below the threshold level. So we are using, right, different methods to control the weed control, right? So we are economically, ecologically, and toxicologically, right, all the methods are justifiable, and we are keeping all these weeds at a threshold level, below the threshold level, right? So we are not affecting our economic damage, and keeping in the foreground the conscious employment of the natural limiting factors. IWM is a rational use of direct and indirect control methods to provide cost-effective weed control. So this is quite cost-effective. Or if we are only dependent on the chemical method, or if we are only dependent on the mechanical method, right? So that could be a cost-effective, cost-consuming method, right? It will not be an economical, but if we are using the IWM, then it will be a cost-effective weed control. Such an approach is the most attractive alternative from an agronomic, economic, and ecological point of view. So if we are having a IWM approach, then we are having agronomic, economic, and ecologically we are having a great approach for the crop production, right? We are having a good crop production, we are having a economic value with the help of this good growth, and ecologically also we are not affecting our environment. So in this approach we are taking care of all this agronomic, economic and ecological approach. Among the commonly suggested indirect method are the land preparation. So first of all, the land preparation is very, very important. Water management, plant spacing, seed rate, cultivar use, the fertilizer applications on the as a direct methods include manual, cultural and mechanical and chemical methods of weed control. So we are not only following the weed control method, but we are suggested to have some indirect method as well, as that is the land preparation. We follow whatever the instruction that is given for the land preparation. Water management, there should be a proper water management, right? As we are having an eye on our economic wealth also. So for that we have to properly prepare our land, we have to properly manage our water availability, plant spacing should be followed, right, to have a proper growth of our plant, seed rate that should be followed, and the cultivar use also. So all these things, if you are following along with the different methods of weed control, then you are including manual, cultural, mechanical and chemical methods of the weed control. The essential factor in any IWM program is the number of indirect and direct methods that can be combined economically in a given situation. So both the method, that is the direct method or indirect method, right? There are so many indirect methods to control the weed, right? Proper land managing, proper management of the water, proper sowing of the timing of the seed. So these are the indirect methods to control the weed, but there are some direct method like using the herbicides or the mechanical method, right? So if we are combining these, then economically in a given situation we are following this IWM program. For example, increased frequency of plowing and harrowing does not eliminate the need for direct weed control. It is therefore more cost effective to use the favor pre-planting harrowing and combine them with the direct weed control method. There is experimental evidence that illustrates the better weed control is achieved if different weed control practices are used in the combination rather than if they are applied separately. So there are so many experimental evidences that it has proved that if you are using a single method to control the weed, right, so that is not so effective. But yes, if we are using some different methods in a combined form, then that weed method control method is quite effective. So IWM is the rational use of direct and indirect control methods to provide cost-effective weed control. Such an approach is the most attractive alternative form of agronomic, economic and ecological point of view. We have already covered this, and among the commonly suggested indirect method are the land preparations, water management, plant spacing, seed rate, cultivar use and fertilizer applications. Direct method include manual, cultural, mechanical and chemical methods of the weed control. Right, so these are the direct method. We are using manually, we are taking out the weeds. Cultural method, different cultural methods are there, different mechanical method and chemical method as well. So these are the direct method. The essential factor in any IWM program is the number of indirect and direct method that can be combined economically in a given situation. For example, increased frequency of plowing and harrowing does not eliminate the need for the direct weed control, and it is therefore most cost effective to use favor pre-planting harrowing and combine them with the direct weed control methods. Right, so this is all about the integrated weed management. Right, we have completed the weed control methods. Okay, thank you so much.